Don't want to keep people out in the sun too long, a bit to look at. For those people that don't know who I am, I'm John Small, do the agronomy for Central West Farming Systems and do their trial work. The trial we're looking at here today is one of a network of 5 other trials we've got this year, and it builds on work we've done over the last 2 years. So really it's about number 18 in a series of trials we've done. They're all to do with the Stubble Initiative program. You may have heard of it through GRDC. It's across the southern region, the old southern region of GRDC, and what it's attempting to do is to find or make stubble retained farming systems more profitable. You know, there's a whole range of issues coming at farmers who retain 100% of their stubble 100% of the time. We've got issues like changing pest dynamics, herbicide issues, and particularly issues with herbicide resistant weeds. So this project builds on the previous project, which is the water use efficiency project, so let's use that as a starting point. The main drivers for our crop performance in this area are 2 things. It is zero tolerance to weeds in fallow and sow on time. So any of the work we look at in this trial, if you're not doing those 2 things, then don't try and take any of this on board. Right? So the starting point is do your fallows properly and sow on time. And that's 80%. What we're chasing here is the 20%. And it's really targeting growers who retain all their stubble, or those growers who want to retain all their stubble in the system. There's growers out there that are not interested in it, and that's fine. We're not trying to convert them into stubble huggers. We're just looking at, in a stubble retained farming system, is there margins to be made? And undoubtedly there is. I said before, this is one of 8, like a history of 18 trials. In a nutshell, what it's sort of saying, what the results that seem to be coming out as a summary of all those trials. If you've got a stubble load of greater than 3 tonnes a hectare, and 3 tonnes a hectare is quite literally, if you break up all the stubble off a square metre and you put it in a chaff bag and you weigh it, it's 300 grams. So you use the scales that calibrate your air seeder with or something like that, you can weigh it. You've got 300 grams per square metre or greater at sowing, and you're sowing in a district that is likely to receive greater than 200 millimetres of growing season rainfall. That cuts Tottenham doesn't normally meet that. You're likely to suffer some yield penalty from the stubble just being present. Why, we don't know, but if you apply that to areas further east in the higher rainfall areas, you know, there's a margin there that's possibly made by managing the stubble a little bit differently. In this paddock here of Paul's, the previous 2 years it had pretty good wheat crops in it, and it had a stubble load at sowing of greater than 3 tonne. Right, so the first criteria was met. The in-crop rainfall was unlikely to be met on averages. Right? But if we just look at then managing the stubble between harvest and sowing, there's 7 opportunities to do something with the stubble, ranging from cultivation, burning, baling, you know, grooming it with the header, which is the least attractive option to me. But those 7 options are detailed in a handout that's in the show bags, and it was given at the Grains Research and Development updates in Parks this year. And really the nutshell of, if you're going to do something with your stubble, you're going to manage it, each different approach to managing it has an advantage and a disadvantage. So you pick the one that's got the most upside and the least downside for you. Right? We know that stubble retention over the summertime, ground cover over the summertime, improves our chances of storing more moisture on average. So stubble over the summer is good, stubble past sowing is potentially not so good. So it's what we do with the stubble late in fallow that we've been really looking at. So let's just turn our eyes to this trial. It's It's a fully replicated trial, so we're just going to look at one rep of it. So this strip through here, so this range of plots through here, let's say cultivated? Burnt, yeah. So this strip through here was burnt. The strip behind the little short fella up there, that was cultivated. And if you look just over his head, the next one was left standing. Right, so that was replicated. There's 4 reps in it, so just concentrate on these 3 reps here. So we've got burnt, cultivated and standing. In each of those reps we've got 5 varieties of barley and 5 varieties of wheat. It's not a variety trial, but they were picked out to be representative of different sowing times, different characteristics. Some of them are particularly prone to disease, a whole range of issues. Right, so there's you know, ones that you'll recognise in there. There's nothing out of the box. They're commonly grown, and there's some varieties, particularly in the barley, that are not suited to this area. So please don't take it as a variety trial. But those varieties of barley are more suited to other areas, the higher rainfall areas. We've got exactly the same trial, so we wanted to keep the varieties the same. And then there's 5 varieties of wheat. They're all pegged here. When you walk through and look at them, don't expect the same variety to be on your left as on your right, because it's a fully randomised design. So if you're particularly interested in how Livingston performs in cultivation, standing and burnt stubble, you'll have to find it in this one, find it in that one and find it in the one up there. They're not, you can't stand there and say that's the same variety. Everybody got that? Yep. Now, in terms of varieties, what have the trials been telling us? They've basically been the same variety set for 3 years. The really interesting thing is that if there's been a response to burning or cultivation or to leaving the stubble standing, a significant response between them, it's never ever altered the varietal ranking. So the variety for wheat that's been the best in the standing stubble has been the best in the cultivated, and it's been the best in the burnt. The worst variety is always at any site, right? So by cultivating or burnt, the message there is by cultivating or burning, you can't turn a crap variety into a good one. Right? It always stays in the same rankings. The rankings sometimes change at sites, and that's just a reflection of the season or the sowing time, but it doesn't alter the rankings at each site. Everybody got across that one? Right? So I forgot to bring me notes, but this was sown early May. Is that right, Paul? Late May. All right, we'll go for late May then. Yeah, it was the last one sown. Yeah, right, late May, sorry. The disease background, we tested the stubble for disease background. Despite there being 2 years of wheat on it, there was not a significant crown rot issue in this paddock. Couldn't pick it up in our predictor beast tests, which was, you know, interesting, because that's one of the reasons we went for this paddock. The stubble loading was about 3 tonne. There was, off the top of my head, I think there was about 60 or 70 kilos of nitrogen to 120 depth. So there was still nitrogen in there. So Paul, you know, still had a fair bit of nitrogen in his profile after that 2 years of wheat. And yeah, that was about what it is. So the wheat and the barley in these first varietal ones has been sown. The wheat was at 50 kilos. No, sorry, yeah, 50 kilos. And then there was 50 kilos of DAP at sowing, and there has been no top dressing. What we were doing was trying to find things that really drive our production system and not mask them by top dressing, nitrogen or other fungicides or anything like that. We just want to see what's really driving this production system. After the variety trials, there's 3 rows which look at, there's 3 plots that are pegged up there. They're all sun-top wheat, but they're looking at nitrogen timing. We've been adding nitrogen at different stages. There was 3 treatments. It was 120 kilos of urea. One of them was all up front. The other one was split between between, so 50, 50, 60, which meant there was 60 kilos at sowing and 60 kilos at early tillering, Z21. The next one was split 3 ways, so it was 40 up front, 40 early tillering and 40 at Z30, so the start of stem elongation. Past that, the ones that are not pegged is a nitrogen response trial, which is really, in terms of what we're looking at today, a little bit academic, but it's trying to give us the nitrogen response for this site. So then we can overlay that in their findings of our other trials and see if there was a issue. So, you know, rates varied from 0 to 200 kilos all up front in that trial, but it's not it's a research interest rather than an agronomy issue that can be taken home and applied on farm today. That nitrogen timing trial though, like I was saying when George was talking, we've run that trial a couple of years, and basically what it's saying, regardless of whether you're burnt, cultivated, standing, if you're game enough, you're better to put more nitrogen early in the season and less later on. You get better dollar returns for it. But it's a profit risk issue, you know. You can afford to put it on and you're game enough early in the piece, great. You're more conservative and you don't want to run the risk, then you've still got to put it on later, you know. It's just a decision you've got to make. But the agronomy says earlier better at this stage. In terms of seeing that nitrogen turn back up in the grain, we have not been able to pick up any difference in these dry environments as to whether the stubble was burnt, cultivated or standing. Certainly in high rainfall areas the stubble appears to tie up some nitrogen, probably 10 to 15 kilos a hectare, but in this district we haven't seen it. Haven't seen it in any of the low rainfall areas. So the books say it should be, we haven't seen it. I'm not saying it's not happening, we just haven't observed it. Yeah, take your time just to have a look at the plots. If you've got any questions, ask us. And just for interest, on the way out, there's a buffer row here. One of the buffer rows has got 9 of the heritage varieties that Central West Farming Systems have built up a heritage set. So I've just planted some in some of the varieties. They're not in yearly order, and I didn't bring me notes. I'm too young to remember when most of them came out, but some fellas may remember when certain varieties come out. They might have been the variety they first planted or something like that, but there's Federation, we've got Federation, so it goes right back to 1901, so it's just worth it, just an interest look, you know, some of the old varieties. But take your time to walk up and have a look at a variety maybe that you're interested in producing. So this is burnt, it's cultivated, the next one up, and the third one up is standing stubble.